You guys seem to really like these last two videos, Your support is appreciated as always, but regardless, if you're new here or you need a refresher on what's going on here, don't worry, I got you covered for the second time. Today, I will once again be discussing one fact about every he level E.G.O. No, not Tef, not Zane, not Wa, he. So if you want to watch any of those other ones, go look at these two videos instead, not this one. There are a staggering 36 of them, the most out of any tier in the entire game. With that being said, this will be a 4-part series, with this being part 3. Each video covering a different E.G.O. level, going from Zane to Wa, excluding Alf, obviously. In the pretty likely case an E.G.O. does not have anything interesting about it, I will instead talk about its trivia. Big thanks to my friend on Discord for helping compile all of this information, because honestly, I wouldn't have figured most of these out by myself. There's just so much stuff, and I just can't do all of it on my own. And thanks again to the managers that run the Limbus company wiki.gg.
Are you gay? Yes!
기실 뚫린 골목이요.
This E.G.O. actually has an unused idle sprite. Can you believe that? Unfortunately, other than the game files, this isn't really shown anywhere.
이 스며들 듯하는 비에 우산이 새지나 않나 모르겠소.
Wait a minute. I'm
이상이요.
Change the world. My final message. Goodbye.
위장에 묵직히 얹히는 총신을 느끼리라. 흉악한 총탄이 저들을 관통하리라.
Because I like this E.G.O. so much, you get 2 pieces of trivia. Both the Awakening and Corrosion versions of this E.G.O. have different attack animations depending on whether or not the first coin killed an ally or not. And this E.G.O.'s Corrosion has a special effect on the background music if the first coin kills an ally, where the music will stop momentarily before just going back to normal.
이 전투는 승리할 거예요.
Fluid Sac Faust, despite being the E.G.O. of Headless Ixies, has no sinking, instead giving SP back to allies, and healing, the healing E.G.O. actually. It's also the only one with a quote unrelated to the abnormality / attack they're doing, and there's no keywords in it, so damn, really nothing going for it other than the obvious healing factor it has.
낙뢰 충전 최대치예요.
Teleport Faust actually has no cap on how much extra damage you can deal through its passive, meaning in the mirror dungeon, you can deal a shit ton of extra damage. Though this is still kind of capped, not really. It's more of an indirect cap because the charge type gloves raises the cap from 20 to 40, so you kind of have a cap, but not really if you can somehow find a way around that.
깊게 들이쉬는 겁니다. 그것이 마지막 호흡이 될 테니까.
Here's a bit of real-world trivia for you. The icon for Nebulizer Alpha is a dry powder inhaler, DPI, an inhaler used to treat respiratory diseases such as asthma and bronchitis. Due to the icon shape, the inhaler is likely a pulsomore turbuhaler, which delivers the medication budesonide, which is used for long-term relief of asthma.
아득한 여정, 멈추지 않는 시대에서 희망과 미래를 찾아 스스로 답을 구하시길.
Command Meltdown Faust is the only way in the game to inflict both Rupture and Burn at the same time with a single coin. It is also the only E.G.O. in the game to have someone else alongside the center that uses it, because, Calcit makes a cameo appearance in the E.G.O. itself. Despite having 0 sinking IDs... Alright, I completely apologize. I forgot that Queen of Hatred Dawn is considered a sinking ID. It is sinking Rupture, so it's a hybrid, but it's still sinking nonetheless. Anyways, my point here is just, I'm sorry for the error. This E.G.O. is capable of chunking a grand total of 44 SP from a target, either instantly panicking them or bringing them back down to 1. Currently, it is one of the only 2 E.G.O. in the entire game that have a corrosion that is not indiscriminate, the other being Screwloo Swallow Meursault. Last video we went over that Meursault is a robot and follows orders, but I don't really got anything for Dawn, and I don't want to get further into that, so let's move on.
소망, 욕망, 그 모든 번뇌를 부수고 그대를 해방하겠네.
Ryoshu Dawn's passive is almost identical to the old wooden doll. Instead of activating on just a crit, it instead activates on both crit and if the target has plus 15 rupture. Alongside this, the passive and the E.G.O gift cannot stack, just like how I mentioned in the first video. That being the Zane one, not the one before this one.
이 불 또한 예술의 황홀경이지.
Fourth match Flame Ryoshu is the only E.G.O in the entire game whose passive activates only a numbered skill use, not coin use.
항상 지켜보고 있었지.
Red Eyes Open Ryoshu is the only non-corrosion variant of an E.G.O for the same sinner, and the stagger slash on-kill effect mimics the effects of the abnormality page Meal from Library of Arena, but it being percentage-based healing instead of just flat numbers.
원망도 뉘우침도 소용이 없었으니 그저 무언가를 잡으려 애썼을 뿐.
Thorocalcia Ryoshu was the first E.G.O in the game to debuff an E.G.O gift, and is the first one to have a permanent effect that isn't a passive.
내가 너를 위해 기도할 것이니 너는 반드시 부서진다.
This is one of 3 E.G.O to give defense power up, and Meursault takes up 2/3 of those slots.
정지. 벗어날 수 없다.
Unlike Cavernous Wailing Honglu, this E.G.O does not have Tremor Scorch or any unique effect relating to the Thumb East Capo 4th Meursault, but it does give Haste, Wrath Power Up, Blunt Power Up, and Base Power Up through the passive, all effects that directly synergize with him. Ironic how well tailored this E.G.O is for him despite being 2 years old. I guess it's easier to tailor an ID to an E.G.O than vice versa, right?
다음 세상으로 넘어가려면 자, 여기구나.
Dimension Shredder Honglu, just like Yi Sang, is the first instance of a Rupture variant. This is the first and currently only E.G.O. No, Tears of the Tarnished Blood Honglu doesn't count since it's a status, not a passive, whose passive activates when the sinner reaches 0 HP.
많이 따가울걸요? 일단 베이면 상처에서 안 떨어질 테니까.
Everescent Corrosion Honglu has no connection to Amblade Pearl whatsoever, aside from it being just the abnormality itself. The closest thing we have is the targeting on Corrosion, and other than that, it doesn't really have any shared effects between the two.
숨결 하나에 푸르른 창공 허물어지니 하나된 찬양이 만종을 울릴지어다.
For the Arknights event E.G.O, I'll instead talk about what their equivalent is in the Arknights game itself, rather than just Limbus, because it's a lot more interesting seeing the parallels drawn between the two. Taken straight from the wiki, the name of this E.G.O is taken from Ling's skill 3. The passive So Is Writ, an ode to wine, is named after one of Ling's talents and has a similar effect to the original, namely increasing Ling's attack power and charging her skill every time one of her summons is defeated, consumed, or retrieved. The mechanic of the E.G.O is based on Ling's ability to repeatedly summon Thunderer minions and then combine them into stronger, greater Thunderers. This can be seen in the animation of the Awakening skill.
좋아, 내장까지 찢어주마!
This is currently the highest absolute rolling Teth in the entire game, 39 base power plus 15 final power, comes out to a grand total of 54. Wait, why does it say Teth in the script? That's not right. Well, you know what I mean.
하나, 둘. 지면이 울릴 때마다 네 업을 떠올려라.
Unlike Outis, Heathcliff doesn't have any sprite transformations during his E.G.O animation, which is really sad because that would have looked awesome.
올 수 있었잖아. 내가 이렇게 무너지기 전에.
This E.G.O's passive inflicts 1 fragile per tremor burst and activates once per turn per enemy. This is not stated in its description, and while it's easy to figure out on your own, it just states that it does it, but not specifying how much it does, so it can be kind of confusing to a new player.
당신을 인도해주지 못해도 따뜻하게 안아줄 수는 있어요.
A Door Blossom Moth cannot be seen with Ishmael in the art and only appears in the Corrosion version.
그래요. 그렇게 가만히 있어요. 상처난 고기는 맛없으니까.
This is the first E.G.O to have more than 1 coin for a skill. Well, I mean, back when this E.G.O first came out. I mean, now you got supplement and all that, but 2 years ago was a long time ago, okay? At least in Limbus terms.
괴물이요? 무슨 잘못 본 거겠죠. 아무도 못 봤지?
Unlike most E.G.O, it simply just removed the sinner and the corrosion art. The abnormality in the E.G.O's art changes significantly, with the bed growing noticeably larger and the Ishmael themed plushie appearing on top of it.
한눈 팔지 마세요. 메마른 당신에게 파도는 반드시 밀려올 테니.
The title Elegy E.G.O is based on the Arknight's character Skadi. The name of the E.G.O is derived from Skadi's skill 3. The E.G.O in its passive gaining bonuses against single targets takes inspiration from Skadi's nature as a Dreadnought Guard, a subclass that heavily focuses on one-on-one duels against priority targets. The Abyssal Dance passive and its second effect of empowering Ishmael every time she is returned or substituted in takes inspiration from Skadi's fast redeploy nature due to her second passive, Swift Action, and her module No Ending to this stream, both of which reduce her redeployment time.
뜨거운 불꽃이 마음을 녹일 수 있다면
This is the only He level E.G.O Rodya has that doesn't heal her allies, just herself.
기록에 따라 당신을 반드시 집행하겠습니다.
Taken straight from the wiki, the corrosion strongly resembles a seraph as it's described in the Bible, aka a biblically accurate angel. They are often depicted with 3 pairs of wings, usually covering their whole body.
기록에 따라 당신을 반드시 집행하겠습니다.
If viewed while in her corroded state, her facial expression will change from a concerned one to her awakening's happy one.
나무와 함께 베어 넘겨드리죠.
Lancer and Sinclair is the only He with healing based off Gluttony A-Res along with a flat number, that being 3 plus Gluttony A-Res percentage HP healing.
여기에는 네 약한 부분도 쓰여 있지. 자, 여기.
9-2 Sinclair's passive, Prophecy of Ruin, lowers this unit and the target's SP by 4 on heads hit with a Lust Affinity skill. This E.G.O is most likely just made for him, as, you know, hitting heads on Enclair, really annoying. And lowering your SP as a result is pretty good and beneficial.
승리를 위해서라면.
Outis has no Pierce plus Rupture ID to directly synergize with this E.G.O. The closest we have is Heisho Outis.
네놈의 덧없는 분노를 담아 이 선물을 퍼부어주도록 하지.
This E.G.O skill mirrors that of the E.G.O gift packaging ribbon, which is obtainable in a Mirror Dungeon event in the Miracle and District 20 Bot Gak theme pack.
눈을 떼지 마라. 한순간이라도 놓친다면 영원히 방황할 테니.
A special extended animation plays for this E.G.O when the on-kill condition of the corrosion skill is met.
역시 네놈 말대로 내 탄환이 향하는 사람이라도 여기까지 쏜 마법의 도구를 할 의지가 없다.
This is the first E.G.O in the entire game to have more than 2 voice lines in total. Tears of the Tarnished Blood Hong Lu has 3, by the way.
자, 버텨보라고. 딱 죽을 만큼 튀겨질 테니까.
Before we associated Rupture with Gluttony and Bleed with Lust and Burn with Wrath, etc., there was AEDD Gregor. It applied +1 Rupture count to Gloom skills, and in the current sandbox, that doesn't really happen now. So, sandbox changes be damned, I guess.
가엾고 슬픈 아이들이군. 그저 애도를 표할 수밖에.
A special extended animation plays for this E.G.O's corrosion on kill. Furthermore, humanoid enemies killed by this E.G.O's corrosion have a special death sprite. They remain in their hurt sprites rotated 90 degrees clockwise to simulate laying down, while 3 or so white butterflies rest on them.
괴물을 봤다고? 혹시
이런 모습이던가.
This is the only He E.G.O to heal SP upon having max HP, otherwise it heals none. This effectively reduces the cost of the E.G.O to 5 SP, making it one of the cheapest to use.